The first step was hardly illuminated by the flashlight, and staring ahead was like looking down at a bottomless well. For just a moment she thought she saw the glint of eyes in the darkness, but they were gone before she could see more. The railless steps wound downwards in a spiral, and it took all of Ramona's concentration to not fall. The stairs were spotted with slick, dark patches of liquid, and once she realized it was blood, she broke down sobbing. Something had gotten Frank, but she still had to know what happened. As she reached the bottom of the staircase, she found a pile of eviscerated rats, their mutilated corpses strewn about the narrow hallway. Her relief that it wasn't Frank's blood was quickly replaced with horror as the dead bodies trailed off into the darkness. The decapitated heads of the rodents spaced like macabre paving stones. Ramona resisted the urge to vomit at both the grisly sight and the noxious stench, and as she made her way down the rock-walled corridor, she was careful not to step on any of the poor creatures. The corridor, barely lit in the weak beam of her flashlight, was just damp, solid rock wall. The floor was some sort of semi-rotted wood, and it looked like it could have once have been an old root cellar. At the end of this hallway lay a second metal door, but this one had been smashed through. It was ripped off its hinges and had several gouges along its surface.
Frank?
She hadn't heard any noise, except for her own footsteps, but fear was nearly winning the battle for Ramona's fight or flight response. The entire situation was surreal, and she just wanted to get Frank and pretend that the whole creepy experience had never happened. As she stepped gingerly around the last rat carcass, something caught her eye in the next room. Her flashlight barely causing it to glint. For a hopeful heartbeat, she thought it might have been Frank's collar, but as she passed through the second doorway, Ramona saw that the beam was reflecting off of a massive golden statue. The ceiling-tall cobra was melded around a hieroglyph-covered pillars, layers of sand blanketing the base of the serpent. For a moment, Ramona wondered if she was even in Pennsylvania any longer, or if this was some sort of outlandish nightmare. The statue had two arms with long, dagger-like claws protruding from each scaled limb, and it had an almost human-like intelligence emblazoned on its face. While fascinating, it wasn't her dog. She began scanning the room for any signs of Frank, but there was nothing other than more sand. She was sure that there hadn't been any other hallways branching off, and she didn't remember seeing any other doors. After the stairs, it had been a straight shot to the snake room, and there hadn't been anywhere for a 60-pound lab to hide. Ramona was becoming frantic, her chest constricting as her panic built. The thought that monsters existed was almost too much to process. There had to be a rational explanation for everything that had happened, and she was probably becoming terrified over nothing. Even as Ramona tried to shake the clawing, dark thoughts from her head, they crept right back in. Something had taken the chains off the outer door. Something had very recently decapitated a bunch of rats. Something was strong enough to leave marks in the reinforced iron door. And something must have a dog. She had to find him.
Frank, come here, boy. Now! Where's my good boy? Frank!
Silence was all that answered her call. Tears began rolling down her cheeks, and Ramona held back a sob. The sound of slow applause made her scream.
Well, congratulations, Miss Gabourey. You made it further than any of the others. My demon must really like you if you didn't immediately end up like the rats, since he has a tendency to play with his food before eating it.
He?
Oh, yes. Let me introduce you to my pet. His name is Naja, and he's about 1,000 years old, hence his horrendously outdated taste and decor.
Why do you have a demon? How do you have a demon? This is great.
Ramona stopped in mid-sentence as the sand at the base of the effigy began to undulate, the ripples spreading outwards until the statue's tail was slithering across the ground. The beast began unwinding itself from the pillar, and where Ramona expected a metallic, grating noise, there was only the soft shifting of the sand. She turned her attention to Dave, tensing her body to sprint past him. Just as she was about to dart forward, the creature's tail lashed out, knocking her off her feet. Before Ramona could catch her breath, she was slammed down, 8 massive, golden claws caging her torso to the ground. She screamed again, a long wailing sound that echoed around the chamber. Tears were streaming freely now, making trails in the sand and dust that had settled across her cheeks.
Oh, don't look so sad, Ramona. Your life has finally some actual meaning now, and your pathetic little existence will help fuel a new era in world history. When he's eaten enough, this bad boy will be able to break free of here, and once that happens, he'll be unstoppable, and I, as his master, will of course reap the benefits.
The demonic entity began pinching his claws together, effectively squeezing the air from Ramona's lungs. She tried to scream again, but it came out as more of a gurgled cough.
Between his natural armor and deadly appendages, Naja will bring back the glory days of the old gods. Besides, I keep killing off all the redneck Vermont house buyers for mere pennies when I could make billions killing off the world.
Frank was crouched under the porch in the backyard, his tail tucked between his legs. He had tried to warn his human that the suit man was outside in the dark, but she had ignored him and told him to get in the bed. He had led her downstairs to show her, but for some reason, she had run right past him and gone down the bad-smelling stairs that were in the grass. His whimpers hadn't reached her, and each time she had called to him, he had wanted to go to her, but his fear was too great. Couldn't she hear the bad thing moving in the dark? Why hadn't his friend come back yet? His soft cries continued long into the night as his heart filled with sadness, and he just wanted his human back.